Being notified that your website is down is incredibly important, but one of the most common things that gets missed is SSL expiry. Because when an SSL certificate expires, your site might still technically be online, but users will see security warnings, browsers will block access, and trust is lost immediately. So in this video, I'm going to walk through how to set up SSL monitoring in StatusCake, show you the key settings, and explain the sensible defaults you should use. Let's get started. First, from the left-hand menu, we want to go down to SSL and then click New SSL Test. This is where we can set up an automated SSL check that runs on a schedule, just like an uptime test. At the top, under Test Details, the first thing we need to enter is the URL. So here, you'll just add the domain you want to monitor. This needs to be a HTTPS address. This can be your main website, a checkout page, an API endpoint, anywhere that relies on a valid certificate. Next, we have the check rate. This controls how often StatusCake checks the certificate. For business critical certificates, a shorter interval like 10 minutes or 30 minutes is usually best. But for lower priority sites, you can reduce noise and checks by setting something like 24 hours or even 7 days, depending on how many domains you're managing. For most teams, daily is a good default. Next, we move down to alert settings. The first thing you'll see here is contact groups. This is where you decide who should actually be notified when something goes wrong. So instead of alerts going to one person, you can route them to your wider team, an escalation group or a shared channel. If you already set up contact groups in your account, you can select them right here. Below that, we have send reminders. And this is one of the most important parts of SSL monitoring. Because SSL expiry isn't usually a sudden outage, it's something you want warning for ahead of time. So I would always recommend keeping reminders enabled. Next, we have alert expiration, which does exactly what it sounds like. If the certificate is approaching expiry, StatusCake will notify you in advance. This is the setting that prevents the last-minute scramble when a certificate suddenly expires overnight. So again, keep this enabled. You'll also see alert on problems, which is useful if there's an issue detected with the certificate itself. And then you have mixed content warnings. This is helpful if your page is loading some insecure resources, even though the certificate is valid. For most teams, enabling this gives you a better visibility into real-world browser issues. Below that, we can set exactly when reminders are sent. So here we've got first reminder 30 days before expiry, second reminder 7 days before expiry, and the final reminder 1 day before expiry. These defaults are really solid. You get plenty of notice early, then progressively more urgency as the expiry approaches. For most businesses, I'd recommend keeping these exactly as they are. Finally, we have the advanced settings section. First is follow redirects. If your domain redirects from HTTP to HTTPS, or from a root domain to a subdomain, you'll want this enabled. Most sites today do redirect traffic, so leave this on is usually correct. Next, we have the user agent. In most cases, you can leave this as default, but if your site behaves differently depending on the requester, you can customize it here. And finally, we have the custom hostname. This is mainly useful if you're monitoring certificates in more complex setups, such as internal services or specific hosting environments. Most users won't need to touch this. Once everything looks correct, all you need to do is click Create Test. StatusCake will now automatically monitor your certificate, alert you ahead of expiry, and notify your team before it becomes a real problem. And that's it. SSL monitoring is one of the easiest things to set up, but it prevents one of the most damaging and avoidable outages you can have.